Another Ants on a Rock video. Welcome to the Ant Corner. Hey there guys and girls, I wanted to share with you the journey this empty tank went through to become this beautiful, stunning bioactive landscape. Now the first stage for me is to design, and yes, my drawings are rubbish, but I know exactly what I'm going for, and I know exactly what I mean by each design. Getting it laid out on paper just helps me properly visualize how it's going to work and plan it out with a solid factor. These squiggles might not mean anything, but just try and take notice, and I promise you'll recognize them in the tank in a minute. As I showed before, I've got this quite large tank. It's quite tall and a decent size, so I'm quite excited about it. It has got these corners, but it's got no silicone on the inside, which should be difficult for me to climb. I've got a decent selection of plants ready. Some I've grown myself like this, some I've picked up cheap in shops. If they survive, really cool, and if they don't, it's no real loss. I've also got lots of hardscape and other bits and pieces ready to go in, so let's get started. Now, as always, I start with the drainage layer. I've done this drainage layer a little bit different to how I would normally do it. You'll see in a second. It's got lots of different size bits of gravel and shells in it as well. Now, one thing I've noticed whilst keeping ants is they normally work their way into the drainage layer. They find a way to dig right through all the substrate, through the separating layer and into the very bottom. So I have a plan. I'm adding these hydro balls in because they're really great for holding humidity. I want this section quite humid. Next I add in more gravel and start to shape it out into the way I want it. I've left this area clear because this is where I'm going to put a water feature. Next, I start to add in some much larger rocks, place them on top of the drainage layer side and the bits of gravel. Now, my plan is, if they do break through into the drainage layer, there will be a big enough space that creates sort of a cavern, a humid, dark cavern, perfect for them to nest in. Now, as always, because I'm really cheap, I just used a cut up bin bag to be my separating layer, making sure it covers all the edges and having it in the right place. Next is a really important section, is adding in a load of carbon. Activated carbon will help the water filter out any toxins as it passes through into the drainage layer, keeping it really healthy and just kind of mold free. It's really important. Now I'm going to use sort of a clay and sand mix that I use. This sort of hardens up when it gets wet, so using it as a base layer will help keep that sort of structure of the cavern roof, which is the sort of thing I'm aiming for. It's sort of hard to explain, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. Next was to set up the water feature area. I'll be honest, it took a little bit of trial and error to get it exactly how I wanted it to work. I've got this really small pump, but I'm going to use it for now just to see if everything works. I can change it up at a later date, not an issue. The next thing was to add in my substrate. I went with a nice healthy layer all around the area that I'm wanting it basically, and then I put in some sphagnum moss as well. Sphagnum moss is really good for helping hold that humidity in the tank. Then I wanted to build sort of a cliff face out of the hardscape. I had already practiced it a couple of times with these large rocks, so I knew how I was going to sort of slot them in together. It was just getting it to work that was the issue. But in the end, I think I got the result that I was hoping for. At this point, I added in the vinyl tube to the pump behind all of the rock face, and then I started adding in more and more substrate, building up the layers and layers as we went. Next, I started to add in some plants. I really like this string of hearts. I've grown it since it was just a small cutting. It's a really pretty plant. And after a bit of time and patience and a lot of planting, it looks a bit like this. At this point, I take some of my springtail mix and I add it in over the top with a load of the moss, really giving the background that feel that I wanted of a dripping moss wall. A few more bits just to add extra biodiversity into the tank. And finally, give everything a really good spray down with some mineral water. Let's take a little look at what we have created. Now, in this box is my colony of trapjaw ants, bought from Ants R Us. Look at their awesome size and amazing jaws. They are so cool. Can't wait to see them in action when they're hunting. So I gave my tank a 2-week resting and settling in period, which is really important for a bioactive tank. And then I added the colony. I started a little hole with the end of my tweezers just to give them a site to go straight into and start nesting. So let's put them in and see if they use it. And just as we wanted, they are straight into the hole. Here we go. I'm going to keep quiet and let you enjoy these beautiful ladies moving into their new home. But thank you all for watching so much. And if you like this video and you haven't already, think about dropping me a subscription. That way you can keep up to date with this colony and all of the other colonies that belong to my ant corner. So as always from me, I'll see you again soon, ant fans. Enjoy. And I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters, Jason Walker, Kevin Rogerson and Anthony Matters. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to Ant Saraths and Ant Lady for supporting the Picnic Table live ant streams. And don't forget, there's an awesome opportunity to meet me and many other awesome content creators at the Great Ant exhibition. So if you haven't already got your ticket, head over to my website, the link's in the description below. You can get your tickets there. But as always from me, I'll see you again soon, Ant fans.